So Anthropic just released today their latest version of Opus. So Opus 4.7 is now announced. We can use it. In fact, this is actually available in Cursor. I actually have an Opus 4.7 plan generated and running right now to do some refactoring on a project that I have. But the strange thing is that this is not showing up in my Claude Code instance. Like, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but that'll probably just take some time to roll out the Claude Code. I'm guessing by end of today, it'll be available on my machine. But I want to scroll down to the highlights of Opus 4.7 and why it's significantly better, substantially better than 4.6. I will say that you do have to spend days playing around with these models to get a feel for them. But every time a new model version comes out, I can just feel that it just works a little bit better. It seems like it's more accurate at doing what you asked it to do. It seems like it produces less bugs, and it also seems like it hallucinates less. So Opus 4.7 is substantially better at following instructions. So this means that prompts written for earlier models can sometimes now produce unexpected results where previous models interpreted instructions loosely or skipped parts entirely. This is something I'm seeing over all the time. Like, I'll make a plan and it has a bunch of things in it. And then when I kick it off to run it, I notice that Opus just doesn't even do like half of it. And I have to go back and say, hey, can you please verify that you actually implemented everything? And it's like, oh, you're absolutely right. I missed this, that, and the other. And then I'll run it again. It's funny, at work, there's this one large plan I was trying to do. I think I had to reprompt it 4 or 5 times to say, hey, can you verify that you actually implemented everything, until it finally went through everything. This is something big. It just needs to follow the exact plan that's mapped out and not like give up early. So they're saying that Opus 4.7 takes the instructions literally. I think this is the main takeaway. Users should retune their prompts and harnesses accordingly. So it's going to require you to kind of get a feel for how explicit or literal it is when you prompt it. I would say that Opus is good at being creative and like trying to find things that you didn't prompt it to do. So I'm wondering if this means like less vibe coding and more spec-driven development is what you kind of have to do with this model. So improved multimodal support. So Opus 4.7 has better vision for high resolution images. It can accept images up to 2,576 pixels on the long edge. Okay, more than 3 times as much as the prior Claude models. This opens up a wealth of multimodal uses that depend on fine visual details. Computer use agents reading dense screenshots, data extractions from complex diagrams, or work that needs pixel perfect references. I don't really know how useful this is for web development. I mean, maybe you can give it a web design a screenshot, but I don't know. I don't know if you need that much resolution unless it's like trying to really fix the padding on stuff or like the borders on DOM elements. But I could see like other fields of software engineering kind of leveraging this improvement a lot. So that's something cool to point out. And then real world work is another section they have, as well as its state-of-the-art score from the finance agent evaluation. Our internal testing shows Opus 4.7 to be a more effective financial analyst than Opus 4.6, producing rigorous analysis of models, more professional presentations, and tighter integrations across tasks. Opus 4.7 is also state-of-the-art on GDP-Val. I don't know what that is. A third-party evaluation of economics. So for us brokies too poor to trade stocks and play around with getting rich off the stock market, I don't really know how useful this is, but maybe there's something that we can apply it to our day-to-day life. I don't know. And then we have memory. So Opus 4.7 is better at using file system-based memory. It remembers important nodes across long multi-session work and uses them to move on to new tasks that, as a result, need less upfront context. Now, I don't know how important this is. Like, often when you're working on a software project, you have skill files, you have markdown files that describe exactly what needs to happen in the project. And I mean, you may have like a dev log where you write stuff out to it. So maybe that's what it's saying. It can kind of better understand, the things that you're logging out into a dev log, so that it knows what it just worked on and it can just improve on that. But overall, out of all these, the instruction following is probably the most critical thing you should pay attention to, and really pay attention to how you're prompting. Everything else, don't really care about too much personally, but I guess we'll see in terms of the memory thing, how this might work for other people. Now, they got a diagram down here that kind of shows different tasks, office tasks, vision, whatever. But let's go to coding. You'll see that it did improve it from 77.8 to 80.5. So it's a little bit more accurate in terms of the software bench multilingual multimodal. So I guess that's good. So we might just notice, a bit of an improvement when coding with this. For safety and alignment, it looks like it's better at preventing potential prompt injection attacks. So it's an improvement over 4.6. So that's something to kind of keep out. You can kind of trust it a little bit better. Now, granted, I still would not trust AI, like what you put into your, your Claude Code chat terminal. I'd be very, very cautious to make sure that whatever you're pulling in, whether that's from an MCP server, whatever that's context you're throwing in from the internet, that you review it, because you never know what you add in could basically screw up your computer, right? But overall, it looks like the score went down in terms of misaligned behavior. So I guess this is a chart to show like when Claude Code kind of goes off the rails, or the model goes off the rails doing stuff that it shouldn't. It looks like it got a little bit better, 2.75 down to almost 2.4. It's not as good as Mythos, which is a lot better. This is like a 1.75, but it's still an improvement, which I guess is worth talking about. Some other things to talk about, they added an extra high effort level. So right now I've been using high for most of my stuff. You can also use max, but it looks like there is a level that's in between high and max that gives users finer control over the trade-offs between reasoning and latency on hard problems. Honestly, this effort level thing is just a very bad user experience. Like the fact that we as developers have to pick how much effort, like how do we know what task or what problem needs what type of effort? I'm not really sure, right? This is still something I'm trying to figure out. Typically, I just default it on high. If you use max, it burns through like all your tokens really fast, and maybe the output of the results isn't that much better. I mean, they have a whole breakdown on their docs that explain like when you should be using these different things, like extra high, long running agentic coding tasks over 30 minutes. So if you're trying to kick off a huge plan that you know is going to run a long time and use millions of tokens, you should probably use extra high. And then max is like you're trying to build an entire SaaS application from one prompt. But for my typical agentic coding, I just use high. I just find it, you can just plop in a nice like requirement or spec file as long as it's not too big, and it does a very good job. Or if you just need to really quickly run a task, like make it run a git commit or something, you could probably use low to just make it do really simple tasks, right? But again, I don't think this is the best user experience. I hate the fact that I have to like keep this stuff in mind, but it is what it is, okay? In Claude Code, there's a new ultra review / command produces a dedicated review session that reads through changes and flags bugs and design issues that a careful reviewer would catch. So instead of you having to like push it to GitHub and do a pull request and have Claude Code run in that or whatever, you know, Copilot reviewer that you have, you can just do an ultra review right there in your terminal, and it's going to find a bunch of bugs and fix things that you might have messed up on. Now, I will say they already have like a /review command, so I'm not really sure what the benefit of using ultra review over review. Maybe it just gives it more power. Maybe it just puts it to max effort. Yeah, I mean, they already have a code review plugin, and you can run this locally. If I go over here and type in /review, this will already review a pull request. I guess you actually have to point it to a pull request, but now you can actually do like an ultra review, which will do better. And then the last section, migrating from Opus 4.6 to 4.7, they say there's a direct update to the tokenizer, which improves how the model processes text. The trade-off is that the same input can map to more tokens, roughly 1 to 1.35 times. So interesting that they put 1 here. There's a chance that it does absolutely nothing to improve anything, depending on the content type. Second, Opus 4.7 thinks more at high effort levels, particularly on later turns in agentic settings. This improves its reliability on hard problems, but it does mean it produces more output tokens. So if you look down here, there's a whole chart. So basically, if you were to set max on Opus 4.6, it would use around this many tokens, right? But now they're saying if you use max, it basically burns through twice as much tokens if you look at the total tokens it uses, and it tries to think longer and harder, which I guess helps it give a much higher score over here, okay? So if you were using max before, I think that's something you need to keep in mind, that like now it could take a lot more tokens, it could take a lot longer, but you're gonna get a much higher score in terms of the performance. But hopefully that's how I'm understanding this chart, that, you know, we have a more powerful, capable model, but in some scenarios, it's going to burn a lot more tokens than the previous effort levels that you're used to. So you should probably pay attention to this one if you care about token usage and how long it takes. I'm guessing max is going to take a much longer to think than it used to if it's going to use almost double the tokens. But yeah, I just want to make a quick update video on this and get it out there. If you guys have any comments or things that you learned or tried with Opus 4.7 by the time you watch this, leave a comment below so we can all learn from you. And other than that, have a good day and happy prompting.